Hello, and welcome to the Empowerography Podcast. This is a platform created for women's voices to be heard and a place to share their stories, journeys, and successes with the world for the purpose of helping other women who might be on similar journeys. We are empowering women one episode at a time. I'm your host, Brad Walsh, so kick back, grab one of your favorite beverages, and enjoy the stories. If you're looking for jewelry that makes an impact on your self-care routine and your style, Empowerography would love to offer you a discount code to one of our exclusive partners, Quartz and Canary Jewelry and Wellness Company. Please use code EMPOWER15 to receive 15% off upon checkout at www.quartzandcanary.com. Quartz and Canary is truly the place where spirituality meets style. Hello there, Brad Walsh here, your host of the Empowerography Podcast. Today, my guest is Kriya Lendzion. She is an adolescent therapist and an addiction specialist, and last but certainly not least, a mother. How are you doing today, Kriya?
I'm doing great.
Thank you.
Great. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. I know that you and I have had a bit of a struggle to get this episode interview recorded, but we're finally here and doing it today. So I appreciate you, and I'm very happy to have you here on the show. Finally, it'll be a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to jumping in and learning more about what you do and who you are.
Awesome. I'm excited to be here. I'm honored.
So let's jump right in, Kriya. You have a lot of certification in the mental health counseling world. You're a certified prevention specialist. As I mentioned, you're an addiction specialist. How long have you been working in the world of counseling?
So, getting paid for it since 2003. So is that 18 years? Well, a little before that, actually, But, I would say even in college, I was informally, I did peer counseling. I started doing trainings. I kind of, I was really already feeling pulled to the work. And so I started doing some things, even as an older teenager and a young adult. Officially went to school, I got the degrees and got the letters. And I give it about 20 years. When I quote it, I say I've been doing this work around 20 years.
Wow. Now you do a lot of work with teens and young adults around issues ranging from mental health to drug and alcohol addiction to teen pregnancy. Have you always worked with this particular age group and age range?
Mostly. I did a couple stints with adults struggling with addiction and recovering from addiction in a residential and outpatient treatment program for about a year and a half. But the rest of those years have all been teenager, kind of tweens and teens. So fifth graders through college age.
Has that always been something, that age group, that's been your target? Like you've always wanted to work with the young age people, the teens and tweens?
Yeah. I never wanted anything to do with tweens, actually. Okay. I didn't mean to do that.
Right. It just kind of organically happened.
I knew. Yeah. I knew I wanted to work with teenagers for a long time. And I know that some of my, my story will unpack that a little bit as we go. Yeah. And that will make sense. But the tween piece, when I went through grad school, when I was in grad school for mental health counseling, like kind of mental health and school counseling together. Right. And I had a conversation with my high school counselor.
Okay. And
he said, you just wait until we were talking, I said, I want to be with high schoolers and, kind of ones that are like troubled teens. And he said, he's like, I bet you end up in middle school. Like, wait till you do middle schoolers, you'll never leave. And I was like, absolutely not. There's probably an explicit, a curse in there. I was like, no way, like ever. And then, lo and behold, I ended up being a middle school counselor for 13 years.
Funny how things work, isn't it?
Yeah. And I was like, well, I get those eighth graders, like I can relate to them and they're cool. But then what happens is like the fifth and sixth graders, they're like, it's like having a fan club all the time. Like it's really ego stroking. Like they think everything you do is hilarious. They're just like running up and hugging and sticking to you and like can't get enough of you. And it was really hard to walk away from.
Yeah, I'm sure. Now I read that you have a reputation as the teen whisperer. How did this honor or reputation get bestowed upon you, and who gave it to you and why?
So I had parents, at least one parent that used that phrase because, I feel like one of my superpowers is really understanding how teens think, feel, process, one of those being, I feel like my own inner teenager isn't that far away. Like
Right.
a lot of us sort of forget what that was like. I feel like I remember better than most what that was like, but also just after working with so many of them, my ability to, again, have that inner teen so close, I'm able to connect with them. And then, I've gotten so much great input from them about what they want from adults, what they don't get from us, and how often they don't actually feel known by or respected by the grownups in their world, even their parents. And that can be hard to hear because we put the roof over their heads. We show up to all their
absolutely
clarinet concerts or whatever,
the
awful, things that we put ourselves through, the kids' television shows that we watched for hours.
Yes.
Right, and so, how could they not feel loved and known and cared about and respected? But, what I've come to realize is that, that they don't, and they're perceiving things through adolescent brains. And so that there's really ways that we can communicate that can really leave them feeling invalidated and shut down. And they're not known and believed in and respected versus other things that really let them know that we are considering them as valid human beings, that we are actually respecting who they are becoming instead of trying to make them who we want them to be. And that's really what they feel we're trying to do a lot of the time, is tell them who to be and how to think and how to feel, to get our approval, or to be a quote unquote good person, instead of really seeing them for and celebrating who they are constantly becoming, that we're not always great at doing that. So, I have some, I think, ways of just connecting with, because I respect them.
Yeah.
And helping parents learn how to communicate and respond and validate and, with their kids.
When it comes down to it, really, we all of us, even as adults, we just want to be listened to. We want to be heard. Mm-hmm. And that's a big part of it, I'm sure, is the active listening part of it.
Yeah, we want to feel understood.
Yeah.
We want to just know that our thoughts and feelings and, are valid.
Yeah.
We want to be validated. So that's
sure.
huge. So there's an art to listening, validating, apologizing, owning our own hypocrisies, all of those things that teenagers in particular really are sensitive to and looking for in order to respect us.
Yeah, definitely.
Also,
do you find it hard not to bring your homework with you, and how do you deal with that so that you do your best not to do just that?
Yeah, this is hard for me. I feel like I don't always have this down awesomely. That would be my weakness in my, professionally, is that there's times that I do it better than other times. I'll just say that. And it's been something that had to be so intentional. Intentional about it, because unfortunately, so I just spoke last night at there was a college, across the state, had me drop in as a guest speaker at their psychology club meeting. And they were kind of talking about careers in psychology. And that was one of the questions they asked me was how do you keep boundaries? How do you self-care? And we were talking about how the sad part is that my master's program, we might've had some conversation here and there about it woven into things, but there should be a class,
right?
It should be a given on self-care, for anybody in the kind of therapeutic counseling field, because especially when it's kids, I'll say that when it's kids, it's extra hard. When I'm, working with adults, I knew even if they were struggling, that they had a car, they had a bank account, they had resources, and when it's a kid, when you're working with kids and you're like, gosh, they have especially if they're in environments that are tough, it can be hard to go home and not be worrying about, wanting to sweep them all up.
For sure.
So that's a long way of saying, so the things that I have learned that work, that work for me is, one of them is really having an evening and a morning routine. I really have to bookend just my daily life in a way where I meditate, I get centered, I set an intention for the day, and it really just helps ground me no matter what I come across, and keep better boundaries throughout the day, and then kind of checking in with myself at night, and also taking the screens off, doing the bubble bath, reading instead of being on a screen, taking some time to kind of reflect on the day and how well I adhered to that intention, and also meditating for another minute and sort of exhaling it out. But I have this trick. I'll share this trick with you.
Sure.
So when I leave, and this was taught to me by who I consider my main mentor in the counseling field, who was my teacher, Catherine Norsworthy. I'm going to shout her out by name because she's that awesome of a human. And so she was one of my teachers in my master's program. And she talked about having this holding bowl it's probably one of the most valuable things I've ever learned in my whole counseling program,
Yeah.
was to have this like holding bowl. Imagine that I have that like in my gut,
Yeah.
so when somebody is sharing, they're sharing this tough stuff with me, and keep in mind, I'm working with cutting and sexual abuse and really tough stuff. Right. And as a person who's an empath, and I got into this field because I am sensitive and touchy feely. Right.
Yes.
And empathetic. So I have my holding bowl, whatever I'm holding their stuff. I'm really present with them. It's right there. It's close to my heart. It's close to my gut, but it's not soaking in. And I can be there, be present with them. And then when I leave the office, I literally, because visuals help for me, I literally imagine that I am pouring my holding bowl out as I like lock the door behind me, and I exhale as I do it and take in another breath of like, because I work in like super nature, beautiful spot, looking out the mountains, so I take that in as I dump out my holding bowl, and then put some music on as I make sure that I don't just have silence, because then I'll keep dwelling even on the way home.
Yeah.
And, put some music on and shift gears for myself. So
that holding bowl sounds great. That's a great idea.
Yeah. It works for me. It might sound, kooky woo woo to somebody else, but it really
I mean, if it helps you, leave that stuff where it needs to be so you can get back to you and not let all of that seep into your everyday life. And hey, you got to do what works. And if that works, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. Maybe some other people out there can use that for whatever they are dealing with or going through, whether it be work or personal or whatever it might be, right? So you say that this work has chosen you as opposed to you choosing this field of work to get into. Why do you feel that way?
Yeah, because my life path just took me to it. I mean, it just
plain and simple. It just took me there.
Yeah, it just took me there. I mean, shall I unpack? Do you want to hear?
Yeah, of course. Means? Yep.
Yeah. So how to shorten the story is always tricky. I'll kind of start, it's not at the end, but I'll start at, the drama point, and we can unpeel it from there. But so at 19, I ended up in rehab with multiple addictions. Okay. So I was struggling with an eating disorder. I was struggling with full-blown alcoholism as a teenager and self-harm. And then all of these other sort of like just addictive acting out, I hate that phrase, but all these addictive ways that I was sort of seeking to feel better about myself and to feel accepted by other people, so that did involve, I'll be honest about it. I mean, that involved as a young woman in a college setting, what other people would call promiscuous.
Yeah.
And that's not what I was aiming for on the inside. I just wanted to be loved and feel good.
Yeah, of course.
Those things, but it was all wrapped up together in this big mess. And so I ended up in rehab at 19. So my journey really started, I could say that started young. I mean, obviously like the steps into that are really clear, for me as I was an anxious kid, I had some kind of experiences in my childhood where I was really different. I lived on the road. It's like nomadic. And, I had this really interesting childhood, which was wonderful, and had some tough parts to it that just led to me being pretty high anxiety. And also really like hungry for the world to tell me, for people to tell me that I was okay and that I was lovable and to be accepted and to experience belonging, and didn't have a whole lot of coping tools for my sensitivity. I was a really sensitive kid in a beautiful way, as I look back, I've embraced that about me, but it was hard to have this raw nerve, kind of to the world is what that felt like as a kid and a teenager, and as the exposures amped up, right, as I'm exposed to drugs, I'm exposed to alcohol, and I was exposed really young, to alcohol, and wasn't supervised particularly well, for different reasons. My parents were really busy in different directions. And so my path sort of took me through addiction and self-destruction myself. And so it was a very natural, like I said, I was informally counseling in college. Yeah. And that when I came out as being in recovery, which is a very uncommon story.
Yeah, no kidding.
I'm a full-blown sorority girl in the middle of this Greek party scene, at one of the top party schools in the country. Yeah. Says Playboy magazine. And at 19, I got sober and, in that scene. And so the way that I stayed, like I took care of myself, was to out myself, like I sought this positive peer pressure and this kind of accountability of the culture of the school by very publicly and talking to all the freshmen. I started doing that for the next few years and, doing trainings with the staff on how to spot a kid, having trouble. They would send me other students that were struggling, with substance use, particularly girls that had like sexually violating experiences or behavior that was part of that. Since that was part of my story.
Yeah.
And so they started kind of giving me these like peer counseling, opportunities to do that. And then I started running the like drug and alcohol programming on campus. And then they hired me to do that, while I was a student, to put together some programming for them. So it was just this really natural, like it didn't feel like work.
Yeah. Just a natural progression.
I'm sharing my story. I'm actually keeping myself healthy, by doing this work out in the world and sharing it with other people and paying it forward. And then it was just a matter of like, okay, so where do I go to like learn this officially, and get the degrees, from this and the letters after my name that go with this, so I can get paid
and make the most
influence I can do. Yeah. So it was just a very natural progression in.
Holy shit. What a story. Wow. So what inspires or lights you up the most about the work that you do?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's when I know I'm making an impact in a positive way, when I know, and so whether that is, I ran into somebody at the gas station the other day that was actually one of the adults that I had in when I was working in treatment 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, 14 years ago now. And he just remembered me. He was like, yeah, I'm doing well. Like I'm remarried. And then I was like, oh my gosh. Right. Like, for this person that I had interacted with for 3 months that was killing themselves, the way that they were doing drugs, and now they've got this thriving life. So when I get messages, and this happens to me randomly, on social media or like this last night, the reason I was at the psychology club meeting, for Chapel Hill or whatever, was because I had one of my middle school students who I supported really strongly when we were there, and who after the fact for the last several years, her class has had 2 fatal overdoses of drugs. And this is a cute little charter school. Jeez. And that's a whole other, topic. At 19 and 20, she had 2 friends have fatal drug overdoses.
Oh,
and I supported her and her classmates through, some of that stuff way long after eighth grade graduation. So having her be in front of this group of people saying, this woman got me through the toughest parts of middle school and since, and now I'm going into the field of counseling because of this woman, who was I was like, you can't see my
mind blown.
In podcast, see mind blowing.
Yeah, exactly.
But I constantly get messages like that. I run into a hostess somewhere and she's like, oh, you taught me drug ed when I was in high school. And it actually helped steer me through these like really tough things. Cause I teach drug ed at like 9 schools around my community.
That's gotta feel incredible though.
Oh my gosh. And parents, parents who say you really steered us through a tough time or you helped prevent, like we got your information, from these workshops.
Yeah.
And it helped us navigate high school and all of this really tricky, complicated stuff while staying really connected. And my kids stayed like healthy and we all stayed sane, for the most part, and close together. And then there's just nothing that it just feels amazing. If I get one of those a year, it's amazing, but I get one like every week.
Yeah, that's phenomenal.
That's So just knowing that what I do that it ripples.
Yeah. Yeah. Knowing, finding your passion and your purpose and your mission in life is incredible. But when your purpose and your mission in life has impact on others, that's honestly, it's like winning the lottery twice, because first of all, you found your purpose and your mission. Second of all, what you're doing, the work you love doing is impacting and giving back to the community. There's no better feeling than that in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the cool thing is, that I've been able to work, like right now, I work in a treatment center for teen girls, like a long-term residential treatment center for girls who it's been their parents have tried all the other things. And this is sort of the intensive intervention. And I only have 7. I have 7 kids that are mine, but these are kids that if they kept going at the path that they were going at, like they probably would die. Some of them already tried, and so I'm at that end of like saving these kids' lives, and putting these families back together. And then there's this kind of other whole area of work I do where I just do these workshops on here's how to addiction proof your kid starting in kindergarten, here's how to get these things ready and get them ready for adolescence and steer them through and stay connected and teen whisper, communicate with them. And, so I get to work on working on all sides of it. I have a parent coaching practice where parents call me up and say, oh, we just busted our kid vaping what do we do, so that we get through this healthily stronger instead of being the beginning of a spiral? So I get to do all three levels of that work, regularly, which is really cool.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Pretty awesome.
So when you were going through your own personal struggles, who did you have to turn to when dealing with all of that?
Well, I mean, I wish I could say like my personal struggles ended at 19. That'd be an awesome life story. And it's been happy ending since, or happily ever after. I've started talking more openly lately about kind of the very non-linear recovery process or change process or healing process, right? So especially with addictiveness and with mental health, it's like, it can be a little bit of a whack-a-mole, with other things surfacing, like you heal this thing and then it kind of pops up in some other ways. And meanwhile, constantly working on all the things underneath, right? that are sort of underneath all of it. Right. So it's a long way of saying like there have been really different people at different stages. Right. So in my teen years, I mean, so when it was the big, that big, like if I keep going, I'm probably going to kill myself. I'm probably going to die with the risks that I was taking. I had an ulcer. I was just doing crazy stuff. I know at 18, I burned a hole in my stomach.
Bro.
And it was just doing crazy risky things, just driving off with strangers at 3 a.m. And, it's like, shouldn't have lived necessarily. So I had this group of friends, and I'm going to try to not start to cry because I'm currently going through some personal healing with an engagement that dissolved, and it's been a tough few months for me. And I have the same group of friends that we have a stream of communication every day that were there for me when I was young, that was there when I was 19 years old. So this group of friends that, I mean, there were some people that sifted themselves out that I thought were friends, but I really had this group of people that were amazing, beautiful. I mean, they didn't know, no one teaches kids in particular necessarily. How do you support a friend who's struggling with mental illness? How do you support a friend who has an eating disorder, who is drinking themselves to death, and you're worried about them? Right? We don't have those conversations enough, in schools. That's kind of where it needs to happen, or parents, right? Yep. So they just loved on me, as soon as I said, hey, I need to get some help, which, they tried to tell me anyway, and I wasn't really listening. Even though I had like hurt all of them in all these ways, they just wrapped around me. I got like love notes and encouragement notes on my desk and flowers every month I was sober. And they were going to AA meetings with me and going to my family night at rehab with me, my outpatient rehab, because I did an outpatient program, which also wasn't suggested because I was in this drinking, scene culture of college. But they held my hand and were by my side through this whole thing. And again, continue to. And then there were a couple, it was definitely counselors. I have to sort of lift that up. Because it was part of my inspiration was that in high school, there was a woman who was she was a health educator, drug and alcohol educator at my high school. Mm-hmm. And she was my person that I rooted in, and my guidance counselor there, who dragged me out of my room when I was depressed and hadn't left my room for 2 months. I was at a boarding school, and said, we're applying to colleges for you. And they're all going to be somewhere sunny. Because I lived in Vermont. I went to school in Massachusetts. It was like gray for 5 months. He's like, I don't care if you get into Brown and Yale, you're not going there. You're going here to the school in Florida. Have a good time. Now go brush your teeth, please. And again, it was in college. It was a counselor that was there. It was the college counselor who was a support person from the day I got there. I was already connected to kind of start seeing him, and he stayed an incredible support person by my side. And then I ended up working with him. That's the crazy thing. I went back as a grown-up, worked at the same college doing drug and alcohol programming, and worked with him.
Funny how things work, isn't it?
It was just crazy, I know.
So how have these experiences helped shape the Kriya you are today, do you think?
I don't know who I'd be without them. When I talk to kids, it can be tricky because I will have kids that will say like, well, it can't be that bad. To go through all these things, to try all these drugs, to do, even addiction, because like, look, it made you really cool. And I'm like, that's how I chose to use it. Right. That is how, what I chose to do with it. I'm like, but understand, like I did things that could absolutely have killed me. I did things that have thrown off. I've got some brain imbalances. I have some cognitive stuff that my doctor has been very clear in saying this is because of because we now know that research shows us that binge drinking, when your brain is all malleable during adolescence, even college years, actually does some damage that can be long-term.
Which these kids don't see and understand.
Have no idea, right?
Yeah.
Because we didn't know that, so we don't teach it to them either. So the stuff that we, around our age that we like normalize is like, oh, I don't remember those phone numbers. I can't remember these names, or, some of that stuff. They're like, some of that cognitive decline might be from some of these things that we did as teenagers. And now it sort of catches up. So I have adult ADD. It's been diagnosed. I didn't have kid ADD, but I have all of that symptomology. And I've been told that's because of how you drank so intensely between 16 and 19, and I started drinking when I could, younger than that.
So kids, it really wasn't that, it's really not that cool.
It's not that cool, right? So just saying that it made me who I am.
Yeah.
There's pieces of that story. Would I love to give up the trauma, the sexual assault that came with that? The stuff that, the situations yes, I would love to not have to have those pieces of my story.
Right. Absolutely.
And that's what I also have to make sure I say to kids, but, I celebrate the whole journey. Because it brought me, you heard me, my own hairs were standing up when I talk about what I do.
Yeah,
when
exactly.
I talk about
it brought you full circle to who you are today.
The fulfillment I get from what I do. I can't imagine if I had this really easy life, and went into, I don't know, floral design. No, not because people do amazing things with floral design and thinking, but what I can't imagine.
Yeah, for sure. So how has the work that you do helped you along your own parenting journey?
They've been totally, it's like symbiotic, they just have really fed each other. So, I learned so much. My own son, he's 23 now, and I raised him as 100% single mom. Yeah. And he has just been my greatest teacher. I think we've always had open dialogue, but I also screwed up a lot. I didn't get all the things perfect.
Well, we don't though. We're human beings.
Sure. Right. But, despite me studying all the things and knowing how to, I didn't necessarily, again, I got my master's degree in counseling, but there was one class on adolescent counseling. I didn't necessarily know how to raise one.
Right.
Or how to do that really well, just because I had these counseling skills. But my clients, the kids I was working with were teaching me these amazing things when they were talking about all that stuff I talked about earlier, right? Like how they felt invalidated, by their parents' responses to things, and how they spoke to them and how they didn't include them, and how hypocritical, we can be, and how without naming it. If you name it, it's different, but without naming it, and how we would lose their respect because of it. So I watched these relationships between kids and their parents, and how they were feeling about them and being impacted by them. And I absolutely brought that back to inform my parenting. Okay. And do it better and better and better.
Right.
And now, if I knew what I knew now, now that I'm out there and I'm teaching others, coaching other parents and how to raise adolescents, that all came from my making mistakes and effing it up. And my kid being you're screwing this up. This is what I need from you instead. Yeah. And then I would bring that to the families I was working with, and to the kids, my son just said this. Do you feel that way? And they'd be like, yeah, I wanted some advice and I got this TED talk. Instead of being, or when I said, I have this problem at school, I got this TED talk, and all I wanted was for them to listen. Yeah. And to honor that, I might have some ideas too. I just need sort of some help bouncing them. I didn't need them to talk for 20 minutes about how I should handle everything just like they did when they were 14, Yeah. So exactly. So they've definitely informed and strengthened each other. It's been a great relationship between the two. Yeah.
To date, Kriya, what would you say is one of your biggest highs or your greatest wins?
That's hard. I feel like it just goes back to I get them constantly. I can't think of one big one. I feel like I've had so many kids say, you talked me off a ledge. Yeah. I was headed in this direction, or you didn't even know how depressed I was. And then I was thinking about killing myself, but you just took me in your office and, gave me some chocolate and loved on me and listened to me. And that actually kept me from going there. I've had so many of those, I can't even count. Yeah. So they all just kind of clump together. Right. If I talk about, highs, I love being on stage. I love doing presentations. I love speaking to big crowds of people. and I did my first national conference this summer, and that was like, yes,
that's
I
it.
do a lot of these, right? Because I was headed to, I thought I wanted to be on Broadway when I was a kid. So
a very different life from Broadway.
Yeah. I mean, I started as a theater major and I said, whatever.
Yeah.
But, so there's something about just being on stage and not the ego stroke part of it. Not, not 20, my 20s is another story or whatever. But I just love feeling like, what a ripple, and there's like the energy. That's the high part, the energy when people are just attentive and they're nodding and they're like, yeah, and they're snapping and they're, and you see whether it's parents or it's other educators, increasingly I'm doing workshops for other educators on how to create school environments that are kind of addiction proofing and that are preventative of self-destructive stuff. And it's like when they're engaged and I know they're soaking it up and I'm like, oh my God, there's 200, 300 people in this room and they're all going to take it back to their own school somewhere in the country and do something with this. That's amazing how many kids that will impact. That's the high part for me.
Amazing. What do you think your unique skill set or superpower is that's helped you become so successful?
I think it's part of that empathness or to build on that, like my ability to be empathetic, which sort of leads into the way that I connect with people. Because what I get is feedback, whether it is in a counseling session with a kid who everyone has said, this kid hates therapy, nothing is working for them. And then I form a connection with them, or it is the audience, or it's and everybody's engaged. And I'm walking through the aisles and I'm like actually like connecting and talking to people. Like, I feel like that superpower for me is really my ability to connect with other people and really like, hey, human being, from this imperfect human being to you, you're an imperfect human being, and being able to be genuine and authentic and human in that connection, whether there's 300 people there or whether there's one or it's a family or, and being able to connect with each person in the family when I have a family in the room. I feel like that's really that's kind of the key to that for me. And people will say, oh, I'm charismatic and I'm funny and whatever. But that's just me. Like, it's like, I'm just kind of opening the portal to my special sauce. Yeah, there you go. Letting it out, which is just letting out my authenticity.
I love it. Speaking of success, how do you define the word success? What does that word mean to you?
Yeah, I was nervous you might ask me that. What do I think about that? I think it just builds on some things I've said. It's like feeling like people are being catalyzed by my interaction with them to be their best selves. Also that families are being their best or just a stronger version of themselves. And success for me is again, feeling like I'm making a difference and I'm rippling.
That's it. The domino effect.
Yeah, that it's making a difference in people, and people are learning to love themselves and each other more and connect with themselves and each other more, and strength and being there, kind of living up to their potential as a family, as an individual. Yeah. It just feels, I'm like, okay, I did my thing. I'm rocking it. Like that.
Yeah. What advice would you give someone wanting to pursue a career similar to yours?
I think that goes back to the self-care question. Is learn the self-care first, learn about work on your boundaries and how to take care of yourself first. So, don't wait.
Yeah, that's key for sure. Because if you don't take care of yourself, how the hell are you going to help anyone else?
Right. Otherwise you're an empty well. And Brad, I had to learn that the hard way. To be totally honest, I ran myself because again, we didn't talk about it very much in my program. And just as a human being, I was raised by a workaholic parent, who didn't have any of that themselves. And I just sort of took that out in the world with whatever I was doing. So as soon as I dove into counseling, and my first paid job was with juvenile justice kids. Okay. And they were kids that everybody else had discarded. And I'd seen way too many white savior lady movies come in with the kids of color. That's a whole other topic, but but I was like, I'm going to save these kids. I meant well, but super enthusiastic. And they had such rough layers of stuff going on. And I got completely consumed with it and wanted to adopt all of them and couldn't stop thinking about them at home. And I was turning on the news and seeing my kids on the news. So you take that kind of over involvement in it without the self-care piece, so the boundaries were not there. The self-care pieces were not there. I was just giving my all to this stuff because I was so passionate about it. Yeah. And I cared so much. And I ended up having stress-related illness. My adrenal system, my body broke down. And I ended up sick for about 2 years, 1 year really strong. I mean, I got an MRI, or the spinal tap. I mean, they were giving me like sort of extreme testing because I had some very real symptoms of like something serious is going on. They thought I had swelling in my brain. Or extra fluid in my brain or something because I had headaches all the time. And finally, I went to a doctor's and he's like, "You've had your pedal on the metal for 15 years. I mean,
slow down
with the career you're doing on top of being 100% single mom." And I didn't have the balance.
There was no time for Kriya.
Yeah. So I would just coach somebody to like get your routines for self-care, your self-respect intact first. Because it will totally, a lot of these fields, if you go into them, like a lot of them are nonprofit, a lot of them are underpaid, and it's doing incredibly hard work on your soul and your heart.
It's mentally, physically, all of it exhausting.
Absolutely. I lost 5 kids in 2 years to overdoses the last 2 years that I've worked
tragic.
With. Yeah. But if I was me 15 years ago, like what that would have done to me versus my ability to be like, wow, that can be all the things. And I can still carry on with my life and I need to, so I can continue to prevent it happening to others. Because otherwise, if I'm laying up in bed, I'm not making a difference in this at all. So I would say like therapy, therapy, like there should not be a counselor in the world that isn't getting their own therapy. That sounds like I'm shooting on people, but I don't think there's any way to do that work and hold people's stuff, no matter whether it's a conflictual marriages all day long, or it's, suicidal kids all day long, and not be, working on your boundaries and your self-care and the stuff in yourself that work can bring up.
For sure.
That's another, part of that.
What would you say is one of the best pieces of advice you've ever received?
I feel like my dad, and it's funny because I use this as a counselor. I remember my dad when we were little kids. So I'm like 5, 6, and I remember him saying this, that no one can make you feel anything.
It's very true, though. It's true.
Right, and I didn't understand what that meant at 5 or 6, but he would say that because I'd be like, "You're making me feel this," and he, in his adult stuff, he would say, "No one can make you feel anything." What's wild is how I, pulled that back out. As I'm like a teen in rehab, learning how to manage my inner world and not be so impacted by the outer world, right? That I was like, oh, that thing that Dad said is super powerful.
It is.
And I use it every day in some shape or form, I feel like, in terms of, the personal boundaries that I hold with my job or with the people in my life.
Yeah. No one can make you feel any which way. It's you who's doing that to yourself.
Right.
By letting them get to you. Right.
Right. However, I am processing whatever I am saying about the story that I am telling about them, their response, whatever they're doing, whatever their facial expression is, or whatever's happening around me. Like I am deciding, what story I'm telling about that.
That's right.
And that's why I'm feeling something. So if I want to change my feelings, I change my story. I change my thoughts.
Change your perspective.
Really simple, but not easy.
No, it's very hard to do. Very hard. But it does. It sounds so simple, but really, truly is not.
Yeah.
What would you say is one of the most important things you've learned in your life? And what was your life like before learning it? And what was your life like after learning it?
So I think along the same lines, it's like, and this is, again, one of the simplest things ever. It's not easy, which is just getting clear on what I can and can't control. And that gets said like in 12-step rooms, the serenity prayer, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, right? Is that I can't say that prayer enough in some kind of form, in my own funky spiritual way. Yeah. But again, throughout my day. So as a teenager struggling with all these addictions, what I realized was all the things that I did, that ended up being self-destructive. It's like they all were these maladaptive ways that I really was just trying to seek control. I felt really out of control. And I'd had this childhood that was totally out of control. It made sense. I had a really controlling mother. So it makes sense that it was a theme for me, but that I had all these things. And even going into further adulthood, I don't think I got a real grasp until about 5 years ago on my own, like passive aggressive, some of the things that I still did to subtly like try to manipulate people in the world around me, to try to get them to do what I wanted them to so that I would be comfortable. So the things would be going my way, I mean, really, really subtle, just a recurring theme for me. So really getting clear on that, like, all right, well, ultimately going back to what my dad said, right? It's like, oh, the only thing I can really control, like I cannot control how this person is thinking about me and their story and their perception. Like all I can do here is say, hey, this is my truth, or this is, but can I make them change their mind about how they see something or how they feel about me? No. And man, does that struggle cause like pain and angst?
Oh, for sure.
I mean, as somebody, again, coming out of like a really brutal breakup recently, like I had to come back to that over and over again of like, okay, I might have to just accept that this person has this version of this story. And do I think it's hella mutated? And what he thinks of me is not who I am. And that's not what happened. And I can sit and I can ruminate about that all day and then end up, on an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety, or it's like, wow, okay.
What lessons can I take from this and move on?
Yeah. I can't control another human being.
For sure. What's your personal motto?
I don't know if you're familiar with Richard Bach, is it right? So he wrote some books that were like popular in the 70s, I think.
Okay.
Like Jonathan Livingston Seagull and a book called Illusions that was passed down to me from my dad. So it's the story of a reluctant messiah. So it's an airplane mechanic that apparently has discovered that he's the next messiah. And it's really like humorous and wise. So there's a quote in there, and I don't think I'm going to get it perfect, but which is like, every problem has a gift for you in its hands. And just being able to embrace that, is empowering to me, in the whatever crap goes down.
I mean, we have to find the silver lining in everything. There's always a lesson to be learned in whatever it is that happens, for sure.
Right. What am I being pushed to grow? How is this working for me? How is this actually for me instead of happening to me? How is it happening for me? Like, that's all the same. That's
that whole mindset piece that you got to look at things as it's happening for you and not to you.
Right. Yeah. Again, simple enough.
Well, yes, simple in theory,
not always easy, right.
But to put it into practice is a whole other game. Like it's a whole other ball of wax, right?
Especially when it's really tough, when they're really big, traumatic, lessons, painful.
For sure. Experiences, lessons. Yeah, 100%. What would you say is one of your biggest failures, or we'll call it life lessons or teachable moments? And what did you learn from it?
I'm going to use my current one. I mean, just because it's ripe and it's real. I mean, there's plenty of other things I could say that would feel safer. but here's the beauty of it, right? Is that in this moment, that's what I'm being handed, right? Is the gift in this relationship breakup that I've mentioned a couple of times, right? So I'm engaged, I'm in this relationship for 5 years. And then there's a very abrupt, kind of blunt force trauma separation and some roller coaster riding for the last 4 years. And now he's actually married someone else last week.
Wow.
But this whole ride that I've been on, and meanwhile, I changed jobs. There was a lot going on. I didn't have a home. I mean, I lost my home along with that, and stepchildren and a dog. It's like there was just so much loss. There was so much loss involved in it, and trauma involved in it, and all of the feels and all the stuff that comes up with that. So I found myself, I have not been clinically depressed since I was 17 years old. 18 years old, when I really struggled with depression. And I found myself going, oh my God, here I am. Like, I get this feeling, like I don't feel like things don't feel right. I feel like I'm dragging this like load of bricks around, with me constantly. Like I am clinically depressed, and of course my nervous system had been like tapped out, for months. Yeah. And I got COVID in the middle of that. I had like 3 fender benders. Like, I mean, it was just like these
one
3
thing
months
after
in
another
particular that were just nuts. I'm reading Brene Brown's Rising Strong.
Yeah.
Right, strongly or whatever. It's like perfect timing. It just like landed in my lap. So the failure of that relationship, that I really thought was going to be and put my heart and soul and time and, all this stuff into and my dreams into, and it exploded, and all of the lessons that are coming to me from that, as long as I'm staying receptive to them, which I really am trying to. And I have all these really beautiful people around me that keep me that way, receptive and evolving. And, like I just choose those people in my life now. And, just getting these incredible lessons about vulnerability, about humanness, about imperfection. So even I think my newer chapter kind of, as we're interweaving me talking about my personal world and my professional world, is that, one thing I'm aware that I've done is I've put myself out there as like oh, well, again, here's my story. I got sober at 19 and then now I help other people. Like that's kind of been the story. And I get on and I have all this video content on Instagram and I get a YouTube channel, and so all the spaces I'm in, I kind of put myself out there as like, I've got this expertise. And sure, I say like, yeah, I learned this from screwing up with my kid. Like I'll put that out there. Right. But it feels comfortable there. It feels safe there to be like, I'm the expert. I got all these letters after my name. I can pontificate all day. And what I am doing that's new is letting myself be pretty raw, in some of the spaces that I'm speaking in lately and really coming off of like, because that's just how I'm feeling. So,
exactly.
That's where I'm at. And so being able to be like, this is a rough moment and I'm grieving and I'm clinically depressed. I didn't work it all out. Just because I have this great big toolbox full of tools that I've learned as a wise person and a therapist, I've always been sort of embarrassed to say, but I'm having a struggle because I'm supposed to have it really figured out if I'm a therapist.
But you're human though. So.
Well, I know. Yeah. But for some reason, so here I am at 51.
Yeah.
This is coming back to like the failure of this relationship has been, and I'm going to get a little teary. So I'm glad I'm not on camera, but you hear the wavering in my voice. But has been one of the most educational like periods of time I've had in my life.
Wow.
That's like letting myself sit in what I realized was emptiness, when this person wasn't in my life and these things, I didn't have the same life. Yeah. Like suddenly I didn't have this life that was very familiar. And I didn't have this person that I had all of these dreams and all this stuff invested in and was just used to being my person. Like there was this emptiness, right? And I had a Buddhist friend of mine, that just was like, you sit in that shit, girl. Sit in that emptiness, and just let it be there. Like, it's not going to kill you. And I'm like, oh my God, but that's what I've been doing my whole life. With all of this addictiveness, it was always like, I never wanted to feel that feeling. It was always like, okay, well, let me get some food or some male attention or some, the substances or the online shopping, there's like, always, so just so that I don't have to feel that, just the pain, the discomfort, and that emptiness.
It's good to feel the feels and be in it and sit in it. So I've been in the feels. But don't live there.
So I have been, right. So I've been in the fields and then being able to be really, really sort of raw and honest and, and genuine with the world around me, which includes kind of this larger audience that I've developed of saying like, hey, other humans, like I am effed up right now. This is really hard. I don't quite know my way out of this. And this is a really tough moment. And what I've gotten in return has been freaking unexpectedly beautiful. So what I'm getting back is the opposite of what I feared in being my really true, real authentic self, which is that I'm getting nothing but, oh my God, thank you. Thank you for putting this into the world. I was a little intimidated by you before because you seem to have your shit together so much.
Yeah.
And that seemed to be such an uncommon story. And I couldn't quite relate to you because it just, and it's like, but thank you, and for saying some of the things that I have experienced. Now I really want to listen to what you have to say. Now I really want to learn from you. And it's like, oh, okay, God. This is what it took. It just took my life fucking blowing up. Sorry, but it took my life blowing up.
No, that's okay.
For me to finally get human at 51.
Yeah, but at least, but I mean, you've learned it now. So going forward, you have that added to your toolbox.
Yeah.
What does the word empowerment mean to you?
Personally, for me, I mean, when I'm feeling empowered, I feel like I am, just in my own kind of, spiritual beliefs, like I am kind of tapped into my source sauce. I tap into the source sauce. I feel like I've always had sort of a super sensitive portal to that. I didn't know how to keep it open. It felt almost too overwhelming. So it's like when I am like tapped in and that is like this coming through me, I automatically, I feel grounded. I feel powerful, and not in that way, like I have to feel control over everything.
No,
I have to have power over to feel powerful. But I mean, I just feel like, wow, I am limitless. Like I am endlessly creative. Like the amount of ways that I can impact the world are limitless.
Love it.
That to me feels, is what I think is what feels empowering. Like there's my limitations, shedding my limitations. Like there just is nothing that's in my way of accessing this pure source sauce and then pouring it out into the world through the gifts that really feel like they're uniquely me.
Beautiful.
That are mine.
Okay, we're going to jump into a little rapid fire section here. So the next grouping of questions just be 2, 3, 4 word answers. Okay.
Unprepared.
How would you describe yourself in one word?
Teachable.
What was your dream job as a child?
Broadway. I wanted to sing, dance, act. I wanted the trifecta.
The whole thing. Money or fame?
Oh, this is so hard. Because I feel like when you have fame and you have a voice, you can be influential with your voice and make change with your voice, right? When people are following you. But with money, like there's so many things that you can put it towards that better things. I'm going to go with fame.
Fame. Okay.
I'm going to go with fame, but it's not for fame. It's for the attention and the voice. You know what I mean? It's not like ego, fame. I feel like I need to distinguish that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Early bird or night owl?
Total night owl.
What's the first thing you think when I say the word future?
Everybody says sunglasses, don't they? Limitless. Unfurling.
Okay.
I'm unfurling right now.
If you came with a warning label, what would yours say?
Probably parental advisory warning. I really have a hard time with my language, and especially when I work with kids, really hard for me to censor myself.
If you could teach the world one thing, what would it be?
Put yourself in other people's damn shoes. I mean, like really put yourself in, not like you're trying on their shoes. You know what I mean? Like get in their shoes and imagine seeing yourself, feeling their life, experiencing their life from their context, the messaging they're getting, the people around them. Like really put yourself in somebody's shoes. I think it would solve everything.
What's one thing you want but cannot buy with money?
Oh, that sounds really cheesy. I would love Brad. This sounds like I'm doing like a personals ad, but just because I've been talking about it, but this has been therapeutic for me lately, right? So is someday I would love for someone to, and this is someone that's a potential partner. I would love to have a partner in life. I discovered that in this last relationship. I really love partnering. I want to have a partner who can be by my side, like support me doing all of that unfurling and flying off. And that is not afraid of my power. Is not afraid of that is evolving with me, that's going to see me somewhere promoting my book or see me on stage and be like, oh my gosh, that woman who is like complex and feels all the feels and, is all the richness of her. Like I want to be close to that person and know that person instead of being threatened by what that is.
If you could change one thing about the world, what would you change?
Their inability to put themselves in each other's damn shoes. Seriously, I think that, empathizing gets overused, that word, but really the ability to try to understand somebody's life from their perspective. I think it would solve every world problem that we have.
Yeah. My favorite way to unwind is?
Bubble bath.
Mom life.
I love baths. I love baths.
Yeah. Mom life is?
Mom life is a never ending rich lesson every year. Something different.
The last book or podcast I listened to or read was?
Brene Brown's Rising Strong. I think I'm from it. Okay. Yeah. That's perfect timing for me right now.
That concludes our rapid fire section. Now back to our regularly scheduled program. What's the most recent investment you've made in yourself?
Can I pick two things? Because they kind of. So I bought a ring to go on my ring finger. That's like a commitment to myself ring.
Beautiful.
I spent some money on a commitment to, I am in love with myself ring for my quote unquote, wedding ring finger.
Right.
The second is that I put money down this year on like a business coach, and it was way beyond what I thought was possible for me to pay for. But it was really me making a statement of like, I am capable of this and I am ready for this. And it was a big risk, but I felt like I needed to make that statement to the universe.
There you go. Putting it out there.
Yeah.
If you could set up a billboard anywhere, where would you put it and what would it say?
Where would I put only one? Well, it seems like when things go up in Times Square, people see them. I know a lot of people see them from all over the world. People take pictures of them. It would say, put yourself in somebody else's damn shoes.
There we go. I see a recurring theme here.
It is. I would love to come up with something else that sounded wise or funny, but I think that's the core of human beings, being able to relate to each other and not have so much of what's happening right now that's dangerous and scary and hurtful.
Who in your life has had the biggest impact on you and why?
My son. I didn't even finish the sentence.
Yeah.
Because parenting, God, it has brought up my greatest strengths and my greatest weaknesses to the surface at all times. He has taught me more things than I ever even imagined I needed to learn. It's also been these amazing healing opportunities where it's like, oh, I'm doing this thing that my mom did that I promised I wasn't going to do. You know, we all do those things.
Yeah, of course.
It's like it just surfaces this stuff for me that's like, oh, okay, like I have an opportunity to do something different here. And if I want to actually stop the generational spread of whatever the thing is, like that, passing it down yet another, then I'm going to work this out. And there's endless, opportunities to do that and better myself through parenting him.
If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that piece of advice be?
So I had to do this as a therapeutic exercise this week because I realized how much stuff I had attached to that my little girl was so misunderstood, felt so freaky and weird, and the world didn't accept her. So I would say, yes, you are special and you are different and everyone's not going to get you, but that's why the world has been waiting for you. The world has needed you. It's been waiting for you. And that weird that you feel is exactly why you're here and why the world needs you.
I love that. That's amazing, Kriya. Beautifully said. Lastly, if you were to deliver your last 30-second speech to the world, what would that last 30 seconds sound like? What would you say?
Yes. Put yourself in somebody else's shoes. Well, so here's the thing, Brad. I know it's, but I do all this social justice work. I'm in all these places where I'm helping people communicate with and understand each other, right? So I'm doing that with families. I'm doing that in school settings. I'm doing that. And it comes down to the same thing. It's like once you can try to understand why someone thinks, feels, acts the way that they do, based on their perspective, their experiences, then it really changes how you not only feel about them, right? But how you relate to them.
Right.
And so just take a minute, seek to understand instead of be understood. Try to understand someone from their perspective and, we'll all have world peace.
The world would be a better place.
The world would be a better place. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you for the serenade, Kriya.
Yeah. Or what was that? Or the world will live as one.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Kriya, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today and share a bit about your own personal story and journey. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you, and you are a true inspiration, an incredible woman for what you've been through and what you are doing in terms of giving back to the world. You're sharing your gifts and giving back. Thank you for all that you are doing, and you are a true inspiration. It's incredible. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was such an honor to be here.
Once again, my name is Brad Welsh, host of your Empowerography Podcast. Today, my guest has been Kriya Lendzion. She is an adolescent therapist and an addiction specialist. Last but certainly not least, she's a mother. So thank you very much, Kriya. I hope you have an amazing rest of the day.
You too. Bye, everybody.
Thank you very much for listening to this podcast. If you haven't yet, please be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and share with all your friends. You can find me at visuphoria.ca and follow me on Instagram at Empowerography Podcast and on Facebook at Empowerography. Please join me next time for another inspirational story from yet another amazing woman.